Hello and welcome to English at the Moment News.
I am your brain.
Here you learn English in a different way. We use real news from everyday life to teach the language. This video is different. Today, you are not watching just one lesson. You are going to move through 3 levels of English using the same content. We will use the same news story about global oil demand and explore it across 3 levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1, C2. This means you will see how English evolves from simple to more advanced. If you are a beginner, you can watch just the first level. If you already have some experience, you can try to go further. But ideally, you watch everything, because repeating the same content across levels helps your brain build stronger connections.
You don't need to understand everything at once. You can pause, go back, and rewatch. That is part of learning.
Let's begin with the A1, A2 level. Today we are talking about oil. A new report says that global oil demand will increase, but the increase will be slower than expected. Let me explain this in a very simple way. Demand means how much people need or use something. So when we say oil demand, we are talking about how much oil the world uses. The news says the world will use more oil in the future, but not as much as experts thought before. Why? Because prices are high. When prices go up, people usually use less. So we have a very clear idea here. High prices, less use, slower growth. Let's say that again in another way. Oil prices are high. When prices are high, consumption grows more slowly.
This repetition helps you understand the logic. You don't need to understand everything the first time. Just catch the main idea.
Now let's understand this news better. First point. What is oil in daily life? Oil is not something far away from our lives. It is present when you fill your car. It is present in buses. It is present in airplanes. It is also used in factories and industries. So when we talk about oil, we are talking about something that moves the world. The more people drive, travel, or produce, the higher the oil demand. Second point, what does rise more slowly mean? Rise means go up, but the news says it will rise more slowly. This does not mean it will decrease. It means it will grow, but not a lot. Imagine 2 situations. In one, growth is fast. In the other, growth is slow. Here, we are talking about slow growth. Demand will still go up, but it will go up less than expected. Third point, the cause. Why is this happening? Because prices are high. When something is expensive, people think twice before using it. If gas is expensive, maybe people drive less. If fuel is expensive, companies may reduce travel or production. So we have a clear relationship. High prices influence behavior, and behavior influences demand.
Do you see how we are connecting ideas? Cause and effect help your brain organize information.
Now let's look at the most important words from this news. I will say the word in English, explain it simply, and repeat. First word, oil. Oil means petroleo. Repeat in your mind, oil. Second word, demand. Demand means how much people need or use something. Demand. Third word, price. Price means the cost of something. Price. Fourth word, rise. Rise means go up. Rise. Fifth word, slowly. Slowly means not fast. Slowly. Now let's combine some of these words. Oil demand. Oil price. Prices rise. Demand rises slowly.
Repeating words activates memory. Even if you don't say them out loud, your brain is training.
Let's review quickly. Oil is petroleo. Demand is how much people need something. Price is cost. Rise means go up. Slowly means not fast. These are the central words of the news. Now let's see how these words appear in everyday sentences. First expression, prices are going up. This means prices are increasing. Instead of saying prices rise, people often say prices are going up. Repeat in your mind, prices are going up. Second expression, gas is expensive. Gas means gasoline. Expensive means costly. Gas is expensive. This is a very common everyday sentence. Third expression, people use less. Use means to use. Less means a smaller amount. People use less. When something is expensive, people use less. Fourth expression, the economy is slow. Slow means not fast. The economy is slow. This sentence is common when economic growth is weak.
Now you are not just learning words. You are learning full sentences, and that makes it easier to remember.
Let's connect everything. Prices are going up. Gas is expensive. People use less. The economy is slow. These sentences help you talk about the economy in a simple way. Now let's practice. First, comprehension questions. Question 1. Will oil demand decrease or will it rise more slowly? The correct answer is, it will rise more slowly. Question 2. Why will demand grow more slowly? The correct answer is, because prices are high. If you thought that, very good.
If you got it right, great. If you didn't, even better. Mistakes also teach.
Now let's complete the sentences. Sentence 1. Oil prices are. The answer is high. Oil prices are high. Sentence 2. Demand will rise. The answer is slowly. Demand will rise slowly. Now let's do shadowing. Shadowing means you repeat right after you hear the sentence. I say the sentence, you repeat. First sentence, oil prices are high. Repeat. One more time, oil prices are high. Second sentence, demand will rise slowly. Repeat. One more time, demand will rise slowly. Third sentence, people use less oil when prices are high. Repeat. One more time, people use less oil when prices are high.
Repetition creates memory. Your brain learns through rhythm and practice.
Very good. You just practiced comprehension, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Now a light moment. When gas prices go up, suddenly everyone enjoys walking more. Or people say, maybe I don't need to go out today. It's interesting how behavior changes when something becomes expensive. This shows that the economy is not far from our lives. It influences simple daily decisions.
When you smile or relate to something, your brain remembers better.
And that's exactly what we are doing here. Learning English with real situations, with something that is part of life. Today you learned English with a real news story. You learned words like oil, demand, price, rise, and slowly. But more than that, you understood how these words work together in real context. Now I want to give you an important suggestion. Watch this video more than once. The first time, you understand the general idea. The second time, you notice more details. The third time, your brain begins to recognize structures more naturally. Then watch the same topic in another English level here on the channel. When you listen to the same subject in different levels, your brain builds stronger connections. You begin to see how English moves from simple to more complex. If you want to continue learning this way with real news, organized by level, subscribe to the channel. Here, you learn step by step. No skipping levels, no rushing.
Rewatching is not going backward. It is real brain training. If you made it to the end, you are already practicing discipline and consistency.
Thank you for studying with us today. See you in the next news lesson. Now you understand the base of the news. If some words are still new, that's okay. That is expected. Now let's move to the next level. In the next part, you will see the same ideas, but with more detail, more connections, and more natural language.
If it feels harder now, that's a good sign. It means you are progressing.
Let's move to the B1, B2 level. The news reports that global oil demand is expected to continue growing in 2026. However, that growth will be slower than previous forecasts suggested. This is an important distinction. It is not a decline. It is a slowdown. Experts explain that high oil prices and global economic uncertainty are influencing this situation. Let's organize the information. First, demand is still growing. Second, it is growing less than expected. Third, this is happening because of high prices and economic uncertainty. The expression slower than expected shows that there was a previous, more optimistic forecast.
Notice the difference between growth and slower growth. That nuance matters at this level.
This type of language is very common in economic reporting. Journalists often use implicit comparisons, slower than, below expectations, and less than forecast. These structures help readers understand how data is being evaluated. Now let's analyze this news in more depth. First point, global economy and consumption. Oil demand is directly connected to economic activity. When the economy grows, industries produce more, people travel more, and companies transport more goods. All of this increases energy consumption. On the other hand, when there is economic uncertainty, companies may reduce investment, consumers may spend less, and growth slows down. Here we introduce an important word, impact. High prices have a direct impact on consumption. Second point, more complex cause and effect. At the intermediate level, we recognize that there is rarely just one cause. High prices are one factor. But there is also global economic uncertainty. We can say the slowdown is partly caused by elevated prices. It is also influenced by economic instability. Do you see the difference? This is not a simple cause. It is a combination of factors.
Your brain is now handling multiple variables at the same time. That requires more focus, and that means progress.
Third point, implicit comparisons. The expression slower than expected implies comparison. Comparison between previous forecast and current reality. This is very common in journalistic texts. They do not say it is bad. They say it is below expectations. That nuance is essential for understanding economic news in English. Now let's expand your vocabulary. At the intermediate level, we move beyond basic words and focus on terms frequently used in economic reports. First expression, global demand. This refers to demand worldwide, not just in one country. Second expression, economic uncertainty. A situation where companies and investors are unsure about the future. First word, forecast. A forecast is a prediction based on data and analysis. Experts make forecasts about growth, inflation, and consumption. Second word, slowdown. A slowdown means reduced growth speed. It does not mean total decline. Third word, impact. Impact means effect or influence. High prices have an impact on consumption. Now let's use these words in sentences. Global demand is slowing down. The forecast was revised. Economic uncertainty affects consumption and high prices have an impact.
These words are more abstract. Repeating them in context helps your brain make them familiar.
Quick review. Forecast means prediction. Slowdown means reduced growth speed. Uncertainty means lack of certainty. And impact means effect. These are terms that appear constantly in international news. Now let's examine common journalistic structures. First expression is expected to. It means something is predicted, not guaranteed. Example, demand is expected to grow. This structure avoids absolute statements. Second expression, due to. It means because of. Example, growth slowed down due to high prices. It is more formal than simply saying because. Third expression, as a result. It connects cause and consequence. Example, prices increased. As a result, consumption declined. Fourth expression, more slowly than expected. This is the key phrase of the news story. It combines comparison and expectation.
Connectors organize thought. When you master them, your speech becomes clearer.
Let's combine everything. Global demand is expected to grow more slowly than forecast due to elevated prices and economic uncertainty. Notice how these structures create professional, report-style language. Now let's practice at a deeper level. First, interpretation questions. Question 1. When the news says growth will be slower than expected, does it mean demand will decline? Answer, no. It means demand will continue growing but below earlier projections. Question 2. What are the two main factors mentioned in the report? Answer, high prices and economic uncertainty. If you identified both elements, you are following the reasoning well.
Interpreting is more complex than translating. If it required effort, that is a good sign.
Now let's transform sentences. Original sentence, prices are high, consumption slows. Transformation, consumption slows due to high prices. Another sentence, the forecast was optimistic. Reality was different. Transformation, growth was slower than forecast. Now, let's practice shadowing at an intermediate level. I will say the sentence with a natural news rhythm. You repeat after me. First sentence. Global demand is expected to grow more slowly than forecast. Repeat one more time. Second sentence. High prices and economic uncertainty are affecting consumption. Repeat one more time. Third sentence. The slowdown reflects changing market conditions. Repeat one more time.
You are now training rhythm and structure. Fluency comes from conscious repetition.
Very good. You just practiced interpretation, reformulation, and pronunciation at an intermediate level. Let's add a light moment to an economic topic. When fuel prices increase, suddenly everyone becomes better at planning their routes. A quick trip to the store becomes a strategic operation. This shows how economic decisions affect individual behavior.
When you connect the content to your own life, learning becomes stronger.
And that is exactly what we are doing here. Learning English while understanding how the world works. Today you analyzed a real news story at a deeper level. You did not just understand the main fact. You analyzed cause and consequence, compared forecasts with reality, and worked with more specific economic vocabulary. This is the natural step after the basic level. Now I want to make an important suggestion. Watch this video again. The first time you understand the structure. The second time you notice the connections. The third time you begin to anticipate the ideas. That is real progress. After that, watch the same topic at the C1, C2 level here on the channel. When you listen to the same subject across different levels, you train your brain to recognize patterns in deeper layers. This progression strengthens vocabulary, improves listening comprehension, and develops thinking in English. If you want to continue evolving this way, with real news organized by level, subscribe to the channel. Here, learning is structured, no skipping steps, consistent growth.
Reviewing is not repeating out of insecurity, it is consolidating memory. If today felt more challenging than the previous level, it means you are advancing.
Please leave a comment telling us which city and country you're watching from. I'm sure you'll find people from your country here too. Thank you for studying with me. See you at the next level. Now you can understand the news in more depth, but we can go even further. In the next level, we will analyze more sophisticated language, structures used in reports, and how information is constructed.
Now the goal is not only to understand, it is to observe how English works.
Let's move to the C1, C2 level. The report states that global oil demand remains projected to grow in 2026. However, that growth has been revised downward. The expression used, slower than expected, does more than describe economic data. It signals an adjustment in expectations. Notice the wording. It does not claim that demand will fall. It does not suggest a market collapse. Instead, it communicates a moderation in the pace of expansion. This suggests three key elements. First, the overall trend remains positive. Second, earlier projections were more optimistic. Third, a revision became necessary. The report cites elevated prices and macroeconomic uncertainty as determining factors. We are now entering a more sophisticated analytical field. This is not merely direct causation. It reflects an economic environment influencing consumption, investment, and production decisions.
At the advanced level, you don't just hear what is said, you notice what is implied in the wording.
This type of formulation is typical in economic reporting. Expressions such as projection revision, moderated growth, and below previous expectations indicate that the market is not collapsing, but recalibrating expectations. That distinction is essential for critical reading of economic news in English. Let us deepen the analysis. First point, projection versus reality. When a report states that growth will be slower than forecast, it implies that earlier projections were based on different assumptions. Perhaps a stronger economic recovery was anticipated. Perhaps greater price stability was expected. When those conditions do not materialize, the figures are adjusted. This leads to an important reflection. Economic forecasts are not certainties. They are conditional scenarios. Second point, multi-causality. The slowdown is not attributed to a single factor. The report mentions elevated prices, but also macroeconomic uncertainty. This combination suggests a structurally more complex environment. High prices may reduce consumption directly. Uncertainty may reduce investment indirectly. Together, these forces produce a cumulative effect.
You are now analyzing multiple layers of causality. That requires integration, not just a literal understanding.
Third point, broader implications. A sustained slowdown in demand growth may extend beyond the energy sector. It could impact financial markets. It may influence energy policy decisions. It might accelerate debates around energy transition. The report does not explicitly state all of this. However, its language leaves space for such interpretations. This is the C1, C2 level. Now let's focus on advanced vocabulary. At this level, knowing a word is not enough. You must understand its discursive function. First expression, projected growth. Growth based on estimates rather than confirmed outcomes. Second expression, revised forecast. Notice the nominalization. Instead of saying experts revised the forecast, the phrase becomes impersonal and formal. Third expression, macroeconomic uncertainty. This refers to a broad economic environment of instability, not a single isolated issue. Fourth expression, structural slowdown. This suggests a deeper, potentially long-term issue, not merely a temporary fluctuation. Fifth expression, market volatility. Frequent instability and variation in prices and expectations.
These terms require abstraction. Repetition in context helps integrate their meaning.
Observe how these expressions elevate the tone. Instead of saying, growth slowed because prices are high. A report may state, projected growth was revised amid a context of macroeconomic uncertainty. Notice the shift in register. This is the type of English found in institutional reports and financial analysis. Now let's examine a crucial element of advanced English, hedging. Hedging involves structures that avoid absolute statements. In economic reporting, certainty is rare. Instead of saying, the market will slow down, a report might say, the market may show signs of slowdown. Notice the difference. The second sentence is more cautious. It allows for variation. Common hedging expressions include may indicate, appears to suggest, is likely to, could result in. These structures allow analysis without definitive claims.
At the advanced level, precision matters. Small words change the degree of certainty.
Another sophisticated device is nominalization. Instead of saying, prices increased and that affected consumption, one might say, the increase in prices impacted consumption. The action becomes a noun. This makes the text denser and more formal. Consider this structure. The forecast revision reflects adverse macroeconomic conditions. Multiple ideas are condensed into one compact sentence. This is the language of institutional reports and market analysis. Now let's practice at an advanced level. Analytical question 1. When a report states that growth will be slower than expected, does it necessarily indicate a negative scenario? Answer: not necessarily. It signals an adjustment of expectations, not absolute contraction. Analytical question 2. Why are expressions such as is likely to or may indicate common in economic reporting? Answer: because forecasts involve uncertainty. Hedging protects analysis from categorical assertions. If you identified that strategic linguistic function, you are operating at the C1, C2 level.
Analyzing discursive intention requires more than vocabulary. It requires structural interpretation.
Now let's reformulate ideas. Simple sentence: high prices reduced consumption. Analytical version: the increase in prices appears to have contributed to moderated consumption levels. Notice the nuance. Another simple sentence: the forecast was wrong. Sophisticated version: the previous projection proved overly optimistic in light of current macroeconomic conditions. That is the difference between basic description and institutional analysis. Now let's move to advanced shadowing. I will read sentences with a formal report-style rhythm. Repeat after me. First sentence: global oil demand is projected to expand at a more moderate pace than previously anticipated. Repeat. One more time. Second sentence: elevated prices and macroeconomic uncertainty are weighing on consumption patterns. Repeat. One more time. Third sentence: the revised forecast reflects a structural slowdown rather than a temporary fluctuation. Repeat. One more time.
You are now training precision and formal intonation. This practice develops advanced control of the language.
Excellent. You just practiced critical analysis, sophisticated reformulation, and formal prosody. Even in complex economic discussions, there is room for subtle humor. When reports say consumption may slow due to elevated prices, it might simply mean something very human. People reconsider small decisions. An unnecessary trip becomes strategically evaluated. A short drive turns into a cost-benefit reflection. Behind phrases like moderation in demand, there may simply be someone choosing to stay home. This contrast between technical language and daily behavior reminds us that numbers reflect human choices.
After heavy abstraction, reconnecting with real life stabilizes learning.
And that is exactly what we are doing. Analyzing sophisticated structures while always connecting language to reality. Today, you did more than understand a news story. You analyzed projections, interpreted expectation adjustments, identified hedging, observed nominalizations, and explored systemic implications. That is the C1, C2 level. The goal here is not only to understand what was said, but how it was said and why. Now I want to offer a strategic suggestion. Watch this video again. The first time you process information. The second time you identify structures. The third time you anticipate the discourse. That is how comprehension becomes mastery. Then revisit the same topic at the lower levels. When you compare A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1, C2, you see how complexity is built layer by layer. This strengthens linguistic awareness, expands active vocabulary, and develops critical reading skills. If you want to continue evolving in this structured way, with real news organized by level and logical progression, subscribe to the channel. Here, learning is not fragmented. It is structured, it is progressive, it is intentional.
Rewatching across levels reorganizes neural connections. You are not repeating content, you are refining processing. If you made it this far, you have demonstrated the ability to handle complexity.
Please leave a comment telling us which city and country you're watching from. I'm sure you'll find people from your country here too. Thank you for completing this full progression. See you in the next analysis. If you made it this far, you just did something very powerful. You didn't just study English. You saw how the same content exists across different levels, and that completely changes how you learn. Now I recommend something simple. Go back to the beginning. Watch the A1, A2 level again, then the B1, B2, then the C1, C2. The second time, things will feel clearer. The third time, you will start recognizing patterns. That is how the brain really learns.
Repeating is not going backward, it is strengthening connections. Each time you rewatch, English becomes more automatic.
If this format helped you, subscribe to the channel. Here you learn English with real progression, with structure and consistency. Leave a comment saying what your current level is and which part of the video you liked the most. See you in the next video.